refresh your mind, we talked about problems associated with industrial farming and obviously the increase of energy, soil, fertilizer, all those things we talked about. The second problem is it has a negative impact on the farmers that are trying to grow crops locally and for themselves, because obviously they're not going to be able to offer the same prices as industrialized farmers because their volume is less. With less volume, the price is higher. So it's had a big impact on them. So another problem is, it's a problem and a solution, okay? And sometimes in environmental science, those are a little tricky because in order to meet the needs of the growing population or the need for food, we're genetically modifying organisms. That's what that means, genetically modifying organisms. Or crossbreeding. So it's like a form of artificial selection where you take the crop that you know is going to produce the largest yield, and you're going to genetically create that so you can, grow that specific food. And these crops that they're making are actually not just for volume, they're also to resist pesticides. So in a sense, that's kind of good because they're making their crops to produce their own chemicals so that they could fight their pests. They also make them so that they could resist environmental conditions such as cold or heat changes so that they can grow in those specific areas. They make them so that they could avoid diseases, and they also make them so that they can avoid conditions that in certain areas with soil, like acidic soil, like in specific areas where the acid tends to be higher in the soil, or salty soil. So meat growth and consumption increase mainly in the United States, obviously, but the fish industry, when you reference meat or grazing or cattle, you're thinking of what kind of farmland? We talked about this.
Grass.
No. Well, grasslands, but in the grassland, there's a specific time of farming that's to raise cattle. What's it called? That's the same thing as saying a grassland. A rangeland is where you grow cattle. Okay? A cropland is where you grow corn or wheat. Okay? So, no, this is just telling you, well, I guess it is a problem. In order to meet the needs, the meat industry is growing, and you know that type of land is fragile, but one of the fastest growing food production is aquaculture. What's that? Give me a word that you could fish. What kind of fishing?
Breeding fish.
Breeding fish. Fish farms.
Storm.
Alright, so major food problems. Forget about trying to expose these. Tell me what problems can arise from trying to grow crops rapidly in a little piece of land and with a lot of yield.
Take all the nutrients out the soil.
Okay, good. Soil is definitely going to be a problem. You're going to have, and that's actually the first thing, is land problems, okay? The reality is you're going to have problems in every part of Earth or every layer of Earth, land, air, water, even the organisms on the Earth, okay? But let's start with land. He kind of nailed it. You're going to have problems. Well, land problems can arise from any of these things, but the loss of arable land is what he was referencing. You're going to lose what is in the soil that allows for crops to grow. That's called arable land. So the layer in the soil that's full of nutrients that allows crops to actually grow on the land is the first thing affected. And that's practically the biggest focus on this unit, is what happens to the soil and how it affects crop growing. Actually linked to this next term, which is degradation. What does that word mean? To degrade. Bring down. So you're going to take a land like a grassland, which is where you grow crops, and you're going to turn it into a desert, which is a land that obviously is lacking water or nutrients for growing. So the land is so damaged that it can no longer support the ecosystem. That's what degradation is.